I want to present to you a lady who I believe she is strong and she has knowledge to give to us concerning this, what we call mental health. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the stage Miss Remind.
Thank you for being here. You know, when you get up here, the temperature changes. You start to feel hot and you don't know what's happening. But I don't think it's the room temperature, I think it's my anxiety just creeping up. So I'm here today to talk about the topic that has been on our social media. There's been a trend, somebody called it a trend, and I say it's not a trend, it's actually a realization that we've not had for quite a long time. People have been suffering silently, and then because of the pandemic, people decided to come collectively, speak about what they're going through, speak about the emotions, speak about their thoughts and whatever things that are affecting them mentally. So right now, I don't know where to start because it is a very broad term, a very broad subject that requires a lot of time, even a day, just to get through it. So before I start, I want to start off with a tweet that was posted on the 19th of July by a musician called XF Africa. We all know him, or maybe we don't, but he's a Zimbabwean artist. He said, 3 suicide notes in 3 days from the same city. And then he put 3 broken-hearted emojis. And he said, now we're gonna do something. Be there for each other. Create safer spaces for people to open up. Share places where we know we can get help. So I'm not going to start talking about suicide right now, but I think I will need to shed a bit of light on what mental health is actually about. So people confuse stress and mental health. Most of the time we don't know how to articulate our emotions, how to articulate what we're going through, so we just say, I'm stressed. What does it mean to be stressed? When you're stressed, what exactly are you feeling in your body? What exactly are you feeling in your mind? What exactly is going on in your life for you to be saying you're stressed? Okay, stress is actually a response to real life situations or events that are happening around us. And stress on its own is not a psychological disorder, or it's not psychologically diagnosed. But it is linked to mental health in 2 ways. How? The first way is that stress causes mental health disorders, and it can actually make the present disorders worse. And then the second thing is mental health causes stress, and coping up with symptoms of mental health can actually cause stress. So what is mental health? Now we want to know what mental health is. From a global perspective, people will say mental health is a state of being emotionally, psychologically, and socially well. So for everyone who has a mind, for everyone who is a human being, we all have mental health. Because it affects how we think, it affects how we behave, it affects how we react to situations. So, for me to talk about mental health, somewhere along the lines I'm going to put my lived experience on mental health, because as a person, by the way, I'm an independent mental health advocate. Also not so independent because I'm part of an organization called Psychiatric Disability Organization Kenya, which is PDO, a mental health organization. And now we want to talk of the things that go through our heads, the things that go through our minds whenever we are faced with different life challenges. For me to describe mental health, I need to make sure that we all understand what these terms mean. There is a term called mental illness, and there is what's called mental disorder. We may use these terms interchangeably, and I don't really prefer using mental illness because there is a lot of stigma and discrimination in relation to this phrase. Some may actually say they are psychological, cognitive, or intellectual disabilities, all referring to mental health problems. Now, these mental health problems we're referring to, these we are referring to disorders that affect our moods, our thoughts, and everything, our lives in general. Why now talk about mental health? Okay, it has been realized that more than 37% of a person's healthy life years are lost due to mental health disorders. So you may actually be thinking, so do I have a mental health disorder? Well, the World Health Organization says 1 in every 4 people is suffering from a mental health disorder or may suffer from a mental health disorder in their lifetime. How so? Okay, mental health is broadly distinguished or categorized into 6 rather broad terms. The first type of mental health disorder is called anxiety disorder. Anxiety disorder, this is now we have our phobias. We say we are afraid of heights, we're afraid of certain insects, we're afraid of certain things. It's actually a mental health disorder under anxiety disorder. Under anxiety disorder now, we call generalized anxiety disorder. We have what's called obsessive compulsive disorder. We have what is called PTSD. You've heard it maybe from our social circles, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now going on to the next type of mental health disorder, we have what are called mood disorders. Mood disorders, this is where we have what's called depression, the well-known depression, and yet people don't really know what that is. We have what's called bipolar disorder. And then moving on, we have what you call trauma-related disorders. This is where we have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And also we have what are called psychotic disorders. Psychotic disorders, this is where we have what's called schizophrenia. We have what's called psychosis. I want to talk a bit about schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is the most common type of mental disorder that we see all around us, but we don't really know what it is. Because when I say mental illness, somebody started thinking that maybe someone is mentally retarded or they're crazy or they're insane or whatever terms people used to describe people. But that's only one type of a mental disorder that's called schizophrenia. That disorder now, it's usually from the genetics. It can stem from drug use, and mostly for the people who use drugs, it is, what can I say? It is an after effect that comes just after you've started using drugs for the first time. Usually people start using drugs the first time and then the next time they're schizophrenic. They're now in the streets, they're now picking food from the bins. And we think maybe they're bewitched. Those are certain myths that have been around schizophrenia for a long time. Well, it is actually a medically diagnosed disease that can be treated if people get help. But because there's been so much stigma, discrimination around this type of mental health, people think that people with schizophrenic are violent. But how many people have we seen in these streets that are violent because they are picking from bins or they're not well taking care of themselves? I will leave that to you to answer. And then now, we have disorders that are called personality disorders. I've heard people talk about individuals who have abandonment issues. That's called a borderline personality disorder. That usually develops when a child is growing up and maybe they've suffered neglect, they've grown up from a dysfunctional family, the parents went through a divorce and the children were left to feel the effects of that particular process. We also have a narcissist personality disorder. There's some people who actually think that life revolves around them in a very bad way. They think they're the only ones in the room. And now you should pardon them because it's actually a mental health disorder. And also, allow me to talk about myself a little bit. One emotion that has been hard for me to process is grief. I'm saying this from a point where I just lost my brother on the 20th of July 2022, and we buried him yesterday. I'm saying this not for you to feel pity for me, but I'm saying this for us to know what people go through and how people handle themselves through the processes. You know what went into my mind on Wednesday when my mom told me that my brother is no more? You know, you have a brain freeze for a moment and then you try to think what's really going on in your life. But it wasn't that. It was a familiar feeling that I felt before, the feeling that I felt on the 27th of December when my mom passed away when I was 9. The same feeling that I felt on the 11th of October when my grandma passed when I was 18. And I realized that in 2011, my world shattered and I became a very withdrawn person. I'm a very outgoing person, a very talkative person, some people may say, but that changed. I just became silent. I didn't know which stage of grief I was going through, whether be it anger, be it depression, be it denial, or maybe all of them at once. Now, it took me years to process grief. It took more than a decade for me to finally say, okay, so this is what was happening to me all this while. Can I please process these emotions? Can I please maybe try to work through them so that I become a better individual? So, life changes us. Situations happen to us every day that can make us lose our minds. But how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to cope with the stresses of life? How are we going to manage ourselves in this time or in this event? I've suffered depression for the longest time, and I didn't know what I was going through. Up until a time where I came across certain information that was describing exactly what I was going through. And then me sitting here talking to you about it is actually a way of getting it off my chest. The best way we can deal with mental health disorders, the best way we can help people around us is to let them have a safe space to talk about their emotions. When I lost my mom, I was left to live with my grandmother, and when I lost my grandmother, I had no one. So now people are telling you that, oh, you know, it's a part of life, death is a part of life, you have to be strong. There was a moment that I told myself, I don't need to be strong anymore, because it's killing me inside. It's not strength to suffer alone, it's not strength to hide behind closed doors and cry yourself to sleep. It's not strength to lose your sleep because of things that you can actually talk to someone about. So what am I saying? In a world like Zimbabwe, where the mental health budget is way below 1%, around 0.46%, that is if it gets to be allocated. In a world where in a country where we have only 18 psychiatrists and 17 of them in Harare. In a world where we have about 5 trained clinical therapists in the public sector. How are we going to make sure that we create safe spaces for each and every one of us to express ourselves, to live a normal life and be productive as anybody else? When I was starting this presentation, I talked about 37% of our young life years that get lost due to mental health disorders. And it doesn't only affect our lives, it affects our productivity in workplaces, it affects the economy at large. People suffer in silence. You go through anxiety, you go through depression. You're sad, you're overwhelmed, you don't even know how you're feeling. I know most of my friends, when they ask me, Remind, how are you today? I'm like, I'm a lot of things. That's always my response. Why? Because I am this person right now. I'm sitting to you, I'm talking to you, I'm smiling. But the things that are going in my head, the things that are going on in my head, that I may not be able to tell you. But probably I need someone to tell them to. The only way we can relieve ourselves from the mental health problems is to create some spaces. We have programs like the Friendship Bank Zimbabwe, who have taken it upon themselves to provide therapy for people who are going through different stages, different types of mental health disorders through just talking therapy. These people are not trained professionals, but they are people who have seen the need for therapy solutions to people who are going through mental health disorders. Because I cannot go to the hospital and tell them that I have depression and then be referred to or maybe being prescribed antidepressants. In Zimbabwe, where the mental health sector is actually not well funded for the critical diseases such as cancer or any other diseases. So it is up to us, ladies and gentlemen, to decide to speak about mental health issues. The tweet that I started reading, which was tweeted by ASAP on the 19th of July, it talked about suicide. Suicide is a result of long-term mental health problems. Nobody just wakes up and then decides that I want to die. Nobody wants to die. Because what we do through each day is fight to live through the day. Even if on our deathbeds we fight to live through the day. Nobody wants to die. But because we have a community that has been stigmatizing mental health, that has been telling men to man up and not disclose what's going on in their minds, but that has been telling people to be strong when they're going through grief or when they're going through certain stages of mental health disorders. People shut themselves up. They suffer alone and then they decide to die alone. Why do you feel remorse when you can prevent someone from dying by suicide? Nobody just wakes up and probably takes pills or hangs themselves. They show symptoms, withdrawal symptoms. They show behavior changes for quite a long time. And it is only needed for us to look closely and see what's going on in people's minds. See what's going on in people's heads and be there for each other. I have found my support system. I have found people I can talk to when I'm going through stuff. I remember recently, this other day I was at work, I was going through a lot of pressure and there were a lot of things going on at the same time and I couldn't process it all at once. And then I realized that right now I'm having an anxiety attack. Yes, I have high functioning anxiety. I could feel it in my body that I'm having an anxiety attack. I could feel my temperature rise. I could feel that I was failing to breathe and I'm at work, I'm supposed to be productive. By the way, I work in tech. And then you have a lot of calls to make, you have a lot of calls to pick. And then you have this phase that's happening to you and you're right in the office. The only thing that I could do was just lower my head on my desk and try to at least regain my breath and find someone I can talk to. And there are always people who are on my speed dial, the people I can call. And the person I called is a therapist and I told him, he's a friend of mine. I told him, right now I'm having an anxiety attack and I'm at work. And he talked to me, I think for about 30 minutes over the phone. And I was okay. I only needed that call. I only needed to make that call for me to be okay. People may think that when you're having mental health problems, you are not productive, you're not efficient at your work. There's something funny about mental health problems, that it is the only type of health disorders or problems that have positive effects. They have positive effects, there are positive sides of it. When you have anxiety, mostly you're a very organized person. Because you worry about how things may turn up when everything goes bad. So you can ask Simba, when he told me that I would be speaking here, I would call him and, Simba, what time am I going to speak for? How long? And what's going to be, like, I need to be sure what's the setup so that I don't like surprises, because they make my anxiety go very high and sometimes I don't even know how to control it. I need to be prepared. I need all the facts laid straight, even the people I work with. You don't just come to me with an issue unless it's an emergency. If it's something that you could have told me maybe before, I will ask you, so why didn't you tell me all this? So maybe I can prepare for it up until this time, because I love to prepare and plan on what I can do. So sometimes I'm going to tell you that no, I'm not going to attend to your issue right now because I have other pressing issues, and other pressing issues are just in my head that I can't even try to imagine if I can squeeze you on my schedule because you're just giving me unnecessary pressure. In every day, I make sure that I do something for myself, because this life forces us to wake up and do some things for other people. Jobs, whatever, school, it's for you, but it takes much of your time, it takes much of your sanity. You need time to just get back to yourself, recenter, and try to live through the day. Just make sure your mind is clear. And we have to take care of our minds. What we take in through reading, what we listen to, what we allow to affect our minds. Like I've said before, there's so much going on in the world that can make us go insane. You wake up and there's news, there are disasters, there's a murder case, there's this, there's been rape, there's been sexual assault, there's been a lot of things, and all that can make you lose your mind. But how do we take care of it? How do we take care of ourselves throughout this process? We need to start with supportive psychotherapy from our families. I remember this other day at home, I was staying with my uncle, and my granny was asking me what I would be talking about, and I was laughing, and I said, I don't even know. But then when we started the conversation on mental health, my uncle is a pastor, and then he was telling me of a time where he went through a phase, which was a mental health phase, but people thought he needed to pray more and fast more. And what I loved about him is he knew that what I'm going through is not spiritual. It's something that's mental that I need someone to talk to. It's not everything that needs prayers. Let's talk to people and then pray with them after. And please, when we try to be there for people, let's not be people who ask questions. Be a listener. That's all it takes on mental health. I know sometimes somebody says, Remind, I'm not okay. People can call me at any time. I think I'm going through a phase, I'm like, okay, tell me I'm listening. And then there's time. You know, when you give people time to explain themselves, they would say exactly what's going on in their head. Don't interrupt them. Don't listen to them to judge. Just be there. That's all that they need. Just take them through the day. Just be there to listen. So ladies and gentlemen, let us be there for each other. And let's protect our mental health. Let's exercise self-care. Let's take time off our daily schedules. Let's have time to maybe do that skincare, go out with our friends, read a book, prepare that cappuccino, you know. Anything to boost your confidence, anything to boost your mind, to boost your mood. With this, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Remind. I figured out that as I was preparing for this event today, I did something as you were saying. I figured out that I did something today that I had never done before. Maybe it's through the program that we did that month. So today I was very anxious. I was curious about this event. And you know what I did today? I took the longest path. Did I look good? So I took the longest path today. Then I was playing music so that I can sing along, and I think that helped me. Then when I got here earlier than everyone else. I was just seated in that corner there, and I was just singing. So I think that helps. So from what she has shared right now, we can say that we have been helped, right? Or maybe you've got a burning question that you have. I'm going to entertain only 2 questions. Maybe you've got a burning question to Miss Remind her to respond. Yes, Mr. Congo.
I want to thank you for that great presentation. Thank you so much. My question goes by, I don't know if I'm able to articulate it in the right manner, but let me give it a try. Okay. You explained the aspect of mental health disorder, right? Which means if there is a mental health disorder, there is a certain order which is expected in the mental health, right? So I would like to know, how do I know that I'm in the right order, which is the right order which is expected, number one, right? Because you can have a certain disorder and yet it becomes sort of like something which is normal. To you it's now in order. So you don't have mental health disorder, you have an order because to you is order. It's happening every day, so everything is in order, right? And number two, how do you pick that someone has got mental health disorder, especially if they are someone who has got that kind of an order which I explained, but it happens. If you ask them, going. They told boss, no more until how do you know that they've got some kind of disorder? Who defines that order? Yeah, by whose definition? I think, yeah, let me cut that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Like I said as I was starting, that mental health is very broad, and I couldn't get to, I really wanted to explain each of the mental health disorders in detail, but I would not do that. Well, let me say firstly that most of the mental health disorders, people live with them. They don't just go away. We learn to live with them. And maybe we don't learn to live with them, but we actually live with them as not knowledgeable as women. You understand? So, under normal circumstances, a person should be good. How are you? I'm good. But are you good? What's going on in your head? Sometimes you just need to understand what's really going on in people's minds. Are you stressed out? Maybe it's Simba who is planning this open mic luncheon. Are you stressed out? Then he tells you, yeah, I'm stressed out. Do you want to talk about it? Then he says, you know what? I don't even know if people are going to turn out. I don't even know how this is going to end. And at the end of the day, you know that, okay, so Simba is a bit anxious, but how is this going to affect him now? So, for us to set that this person is actually suffering from this mental health disorder, we need to know how to identify that someone is going through a phase. For example, if it's depression, most of the time the person is sad, they are overwhelmed, they want to cry, they're going through a lot and they become very withdrawn from their normal activities, right? You know me, maybe I used to talk very much and then all of a sudden I'm no longer talking and then we think they're moods. Those are not moods. Those are not moods. It's actually a mental health disorder. So it takes for us knowledge, enough knowledge imparted to us so that we know how to identify that someone is going through a phase. You know what? Usually humans love to live in a more uniform way, in patterns. We do the same things every day. So when I know you enough to realize that you didn't do this before, but now you're doing this all of a sudden, so I begin to question what's going on. Yes. We know the people around us, we have realized the trends or the kind of characters that they have, the personalities that they have. But when something now just comes out of the blue and they don't want to be close anymore, for example, there was a time that I've spent about 2 months or so offline. I didn't want to talk to people because it's very chaotic in the world. I was going through a phase where I just needed to just be out there, at least have some sanity. But to the people who know me, they knew something was wrong. And now it's up to you to reach out to someone you know. I remember there's a guy who tweeted about his depression phase, where his friends would come knocking, he locked his doors, his gate, and then his friends would come knocking until they jump over the bureau to get into his house. Because they knew he was going through a lot. And he needed people to talk to. Let me tell you something. In as much as a person who's suffering from mental health disorder doesn't need people, they do. They just need people who understand what they're going through. They just don't need people who are poky, who are nosy, who want to know, who ask a lot of questions. They just need you to be there. Just come, sit with me, maybe in silence, and then I'm okay. I don't want to talk about it. So don't force people to talk about things that they don't want to talk about. A friend of mine on, is it Thursday?